This is Bob Sansevere here with Vikings reporter Jeremy Fowler. Now, Jeremy, let me give you several scenarios. Vikings take Matt Khalil with the third overall pick.
Right.
What do they do in the second and third round? Do they go cornerback, receiver, receiver, cornerback? I think that's what they have to do and will wind up doing.
Certainly, those are the needs. I think that receiver, maybe you can argue, is a more glaring need than cornerback, even though you need great cover corners in this league. They've done enough, and they get Chris Cook back if he can stay on the straight and narrow, and they've gotten a couple free agent signings. Receiver, you have Percy Harvin and then a bunch of number 3 or 4 receivers that have to play second and third spots in the lineup. You need more depth there. You need somebody that can stretch the field. I think in the second round you can get a really good player, somebody that will maybe drop to you, maybe a Georgia Tech Stephen Hill will drop that far. But the thing is, you could argue the corner has better depth, though, overall, when you can maybe get a guy like Janoris Jenkins fall to you at 35, Brandon Boykin from Georgia, a lot of good players there at either spot. I think they'll get a really good starting caliber player with that second round pick. Third round, you can either come back, you fill one of those other needs, or if you even pass on Khalil, you can get a guy like a Mitchell Schwartz from Cal or somebody maybe who falls to you in that third round as well.
Well, let me ask this, though. Okay, Cook comes back and plays, and he's a good player. What are they going to do with with Winfield? Is he going to be a cornerback? Is he going to be a safety?
I think he'll be a corner. I think he's entrenched in that slot position. That's where he wants to be. He's made it clear he doesn't want to be a safety. However, I think the trend you're going to see in the NFL is longtime veteran corners who maybe aren't quick enough to play corner will transition to safety because it's not that much of a desired position anyways. Speaking of safety, they could try to get a guy like Harrison Smith from Notre Dame, maybe if somebody's there in that second round. I think Winfield will stay in the slot. That's where he wants to be. He's still good enough, in the inside. Maybe, I don't know how quick he is anymore on the outside, or at least as much of a playmaker going on 35 years old, but he's still effective. He's kept himself in good shape. He can play in the slot.
Now, let's say they take Claiborne with the first pick. In the second and third round, do they go left tackle, receiver in those picks? I mean, they desperately need a left tackle.
Right. It depends on who's there. And I don't think Charlie Johnson, for as much as he tries and can be maybe a good guard for them, I just don't think he's going to be the left tackle protecting Christian Ponder in that blind side this year. I think he'll start and they'll move him over to left guard. But, you have some options. I think it just depends on who's there at 35. I just think the depth is better at corner maybe than it is at offensive tackle. You can still get a good tackle in the third round. Phil Loadholt, the second round pick from a few years ago, he's done some positives and some negatives. I think he has to prove himself more this year, but you can still get good value even if you wait in the third round. I think that you need to hit more of a home run in the second round than you did with Loadholt 3 years ago.
And what happens if you take the receiver with that first pick? I mean, do you then commit yourself still to the secondary and to left tackle?
I think you have to. Those are the 3 needs. I call them the big 3 in this draft. Maybe you could throw safety in there. Maybe linebacker is a real need. And they also need to get a running back somewhere in the first 5 rounds for insurance, with Adrian out. But at the end of the day, those are the 3 needs. You have to fill those in the first 3 rounds, I feel like. You don't want to always just draft for position. But in this case, there's enough depth in all 3 of those positions where you have to go there first 3 rounds.
Well, see, I still think in the secondary, that's the one thing that they're not really discussing, maybe because they don't know about Antoine Winfield, where he's going to be physically. Any indication that he's not going to be healthy?
I don't think so. I mean, he just had a broken clavicle. I think he's going to be fine.
But you got Cook and him. I mean, you need depth, but that's who winds. Let's say they take Claiborne. Who becomes the nickel, or who stays off the field? Winfield.
Winfield would be the nickel slot, I would think.
Has he deteriorated that much that he
No,
can't
I don't
start?
think so. Well, you got to remember that you're going to have at least three cornerbacks on the field at least 50% of the time.
Sure,
so he's going to be out there.
But he's the best tackler, pound for pound. He's the best tackler in the league. When you look at, certainly in the secondary, nobody can hit the way he does and come up and make plays. So you don't want to keep him off the field, do you?
No, you don't.
On running plays too?
Right, but I think they'll filter in Cook and Winfield. I think Winfield can still play some outside, but at least 50% of the time he's going to be in the slot, and you have Cook, but who's still an unknown. I mean, he has to still establish himself and have a solid training camp and still prove that he's ready to play. He sat out half the year last year, let alone the legal problems. So he's got to come back in good shape, and that's still somewhat of an unknown, but I think you can put him on the outside. If you draft Claiborne, you got 2 good outside corners. Winfield's still playing a lot in that slot where he wants to be anyways. And if you decrease his snaps a little bit, I think that keeps him fresher.
Now, you had mentioned that he doesn't want to play. See, when I talked to him a year or so ago, he understood that as you get older, he may have to move to safety.
Right.
I don't really see an issue with that. And maybe you move him up into the nickel corner when you cannot take him off the field with his ability to tackle.
Right. At the end of the year, he did talk at length about really not wanting to play safety or not having an interest in it. Maybe they can talk him into it.
Tough.
Right. They could talk him into it, sure. But I think they'll maybe draft a safety at some point too that they can develop.
But that doesn't mean the guy's going to be ready.
Right. Well, Hussein Abdullah is still an unknown. They could bring him back. They offered him a contract, but I think it was on the lower end, so he's kind of feeling out the market right now. He might or might not come back. They still like Mistral Raymond. He got exposed a little bit, but he still has potential. So there's some things you do at safety, which is not that much of a desirable position anymore. I think it's just changing. You need more cover corners.
Well, we'll find out what they wind up doing, whether it's a cover corner, the killer left tackle, or the great stretch the field wide receiver with that first pick. And from there, things start to fall in place for him. We'll find out starting Thursday night.